All right, here we go. It is time for Southeastern Rewind's Tell Me More. Hey, I'm David Sommers with the Tennessee stud Ron Fuller, answering 5 questions from the latest Studcast, now on Ron's new home on YouTube. The 5 questions on this edition of Tell Me More come from Studcast episode number 18. It's called Another Family Feud. Imagine that, y'all. Remember to find Southeastern Rewind on YouTube. Subscribe, ring the bell to get reminders on when the greatest stories in wrestling will be dropped on YouTube. If you ring the bell, your bell will get rung, and you'll know when it's all waiting for you on Southeastern Rewind on YouTube. And please make sure to tell your friends about Southeastern Rewind as well. Hey, Stud, you kind of hit a milestone in this last week on the Rewind channel, so congratulations. This thing it really is blowing up.
Yeah, man. We hit one of those pretty difficult ones to reach for most YouTube channels. We had more than 1,000 subscribers, over the 4,000 hours that it takes to put you in that next level, and that's where we are. After about only 2 months, Dave, it's pretty remarkable to have reached that, and all the credit for that's owed to fans out there that listen, like the ones listening to this Tell Me More now.
Yep.
And I really, really appreciate that. We keep cranking out new stuff for them now, something new just about every day. In fact, tomorrow they're going to be able to go and hear the recall, the Rewind recall that we do, me and Les Thatcher. We're going to be talking about the episode number 3 of USA TV show, which was a great TV show, by the way. A lot of things, great things happened to that. We had some video from the actual Coliseum in Knoxville. We're starting to get those into the shows. And so it's really a pleasure, man, to see what's happening. And then, as always, man, number 4 USA television show is going to come up at exactly 3 p.m. Eastern time next Sunday. And every Sunday, 3 o'clock, you can go to Southeastern Rewind and you can see the next USA television episode.
Absolutely, this coming Sunday at 2 Central, 3 Eastern. Don't miss it. USA Wrestling, you'll find it on YouTube on the Southeastern channel. Of course, you were the owner, you were the promoter, you were the booker. You wore all the hats for that, and you're sitting side by side with, man, what a legend, Gordon Soley.
Yes. God, man, the way you put it there, I'm pretty busy. I'm almost too busy there, Dave. Gosh, man, you're right. I'm wearing 4 hats right there for sure. And if I thought about it, I might have a couple of more sitting back there ready to put them on.
Let me tell you something. I don't know how many years ago that was, but you're still just as busy today. I know you, and you haven't changed.
Oh, yeah, man. I think I'm busier today than I was back in those days,
I think so.
Honest with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this one, man, I really like these shows here. You and I both enjoy these. We talked about it quite a bit. And gosh, this one is a good one. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure we're going to have some great questions. Wow, we have just been getting phenomenal questions from fans out there.
Hey, well, let's go with it, and let's start from a land down under. And question number 1 comes from Lacey Premost from Perth, Australia. It's a place you know something about. And it goes like this. From a discussion between you and Mr. Basilio about a fan from India, I heard you mention something about wrestling on the Indian Ocean in Perth. And he says, actually recall being there in Olympic Stadium to see you and Scott Casey wrestle Don Carson and Dick Dunn for the Asian Tag Championship. Other than that match, what is your fondest memory you have of Perth? First of all, can you believe that question? That is a freaking fan right there.
Oh, geez, man. It's pretty remarkable. My goodness, man. She must, she's not a real young girl at this point either, kind of like me, if she was actually there and saw that match. And I remember, a little bit about the way this show, this number 18 opened up is we had a fan from India that had asked a question. And, and I think Basilio, Tony said something about, Ron, you've been kind of in that area, and we got to talking about the Indian Ocean and talking about Perth.
Mm-hmm.
And so Miss Lacey, again, that's her name, I think you
Yep.
said. Lacey, that's a great question. Thank you very much. And I'm glad you were in attendance that night. And you probably know about who won than I did, to be honest with you, Lacey. I think I had probably 4,000 or 5,000 matches. So it's pretty hard for me to remember the actual outcome of a whole lot of them. But, as you might imagine, Dave,
Yeah, what's wrong with you, Ron? Come on.
You get a little confused about whether if it wasn't for this great ledger I have of every one of my matches, and it tells you whether I won or lost, but it doesn't tell you what happened in the match or anything like that. So, I might have to go back and look in the ledger here, Lacey, and see what I did do that night. But I probably didn't win because I know I never was a half partner or a champion of a tag team while I was in Australia. Not the Austra-Asian Championship for sure. That was the belts that Jim Barnett used in Australia. And he called them that because he not only wrestled in Australia, he would take you, some guys, you would do these tours in Singapore and Malaysia and end up in Hong Kong.
Wow.
Before you left Australia. So, you really were in Australia and in Asia.
How old were you? How old were you at about that time?
I was, let's see, this was 1973. I would have been 25 years old, man.
Wow, and facing some veterans like Don Carson and Dick Dunn for this championship. So, I mean, if you say you didn't win.
It wasn't their first tag team championship.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not.
Everywhere.
Yeah, not right. Yeah. Wow.
Everywhere they ever went, they were really, really great. So I really don't remember the match, Lacey. I do remember the stadium pretty well. It was beautiful. It was and it was called Olympic Stadium because I think it was the 1954 Olympics were held in Australia, and some of the events were done in Perth in that stadium. And it was a fairly large crowd. I'm gonna estimate somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000 maybe.
Wow, that was my next question. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty big crowd, and I only went there twice during the 3 months I was in Australia. We didn't go there very often. Went there twice. And my fondest memory, geez, Lacey, I'm going to tell you my fondest memory, the thing that jumps into my mind right away is something that happened on the beach there. And I'm pretty sure the beach there was called Scarborough. And I hope I'm right about that, but I do remember that we went in there and arrived the day before the match so that we got to spend the entire day, the following day, and they put us in a hotel right on the beach in Perth. And so I talked to Danny Littlebear, who was a great American Indian wrestler, into going body surfing with me. And, and he didn't know anything about body surfing, obviously, but, he was a good guy, and, and he tried his best. And so we went on the beach, and it was summertime. Obviously I was there in the summer, which was winter, and in our time frame, when it's winter here, it's summer down there on that side of the globe.
Yeah.
So it was probably in the month of, I'm going to say February, maybe once in January, once in March. But anyway, he and I go body surfing, and there's nobody much on the beach. And an old Aussie guy, very older fella, you could tell he was old. He came and he sat down, he crossed his legs, and he sat on the beach there. Probably maybe only 20, 30 feet off of where the water came up to.
Mm-hmm.
And he watched us body surf for probably a good 30, 45 minutes. And, when we got done, and Danny Littlebear was nice enough to hang in there with me, and when I got done, we walked up on the beach, and I asked the old timer, I said, hey, how you doing, man? Hey, what's going on? And he goes, he says, I'm just having a nice day, mate. He says, he said, right out there where you boys were just a fortnight ago, he says, a white come in, he swallowed a fella.
Oh, God.
And I said, I said, whoa, back up. I said, well, did you say a white shark came in right there? And he says, oh yeah, mate. He said, right out that way you boys were. He says, and I said, and you said he swallowed him whole, I wanted him to clear that up for me, and I said, you must have meant he bit him, or he killed him maybe, but you know. And he says, "Oh no, mate." He says, "Oh no." He says, "Lots of people saw it." He said he swallowed him whole. I was like,
Yeah.
Daddy little
Yeah.
bear looked at me. He wanted to kill me. He's like, right. You didn't tell me they had big sharks out there. And I said, well, Daddy, I didn't know they had big sharks that big out there either, man. So I asked the old guy, I said, well, why didn't you tell us? Wave your arm and, have us come in and say, boys, that's a bad place out there potentially, and he says, well, I thought maybe you boys were from around here and you knew it, It's a big thing in the paper. So that Lacey is probably my I can't call it a fond memory. It's a horrifying memory, actually. That when somebody says to me, Perth, Australia, that's the first thing that pops into my mind is a big old white coming in and swallowing somebody about 40 feet off the beach.
Yeah, I remember you telling that initially on episode number 18, and it was kind of incredible because obviously you didn't think about it, didn't know about it, so you weren't scared until after you got out of the water and the guy goes, yeah, it was a great white. Yeah, okay, then that kind of changed your tune.
It changes everything,
and
man.
Danny's tune as well. So you went right back in the water, right?
Oh, no, man. We were already done, but we were really done after that.
Yeah, you kind of had enough of that. Okay.
That was the end of that, period.
All right, so the Australian days. Question number 2. Charlie Henderson of Atlanta, Georgia says, you mentioned Lake Lanier just outside of Atlanta. Do you have any good Lake Lanier stories? So I guess, did you spend time on the lake?
Well, yeah, we did. In this episode, we talk about a lot of things. We talk about Arizona. We talk about Atlanta. We talk about Mobile. We're in transition. A lot of things going on in my dad's life at this point. He's ready to leave Arizona. He's not getting paid for his territory in Mobile, Alabama by his cousins, the Fields brothers. So he's going to go back there to start them to generate that income again. And then once he gets that accomplished, and he goes in there and runs against them, and it causes them to get so afraid their business starts dying. His business starts to really grow, and they come up with all the money they owe him. They say, hey, we'll just give you everything we owe you if you just leave. So that's how we end up in Atlanta. So, Mr. Henderson here's question, and we talked a little bit about Atlanta, I think, in this episode because of Don McIntyre, who was the guy that my father bought out, who was a wealthy real estate developer at this point in time, 1964, 65. Mm-hmm. And he owned the biggest boat on Lake Lanier. Lake Lanier is a huge lake outside Atlanta. It has tremendous boats. This was probably a $2 million boat in 1964, 65. It just a 60-footer. It's like it looked like it belonged on the ocean, and it did belong on the ocean. So he's asking about a story here. Now I got a story that jumps into my head. It's not so much about me, but it's about my brother. It's about Bob Armstrong. It's about some familiar characters and everything. And this one was told to me by Jerry Brisco. And Jerry Brisco was good friends with Rob and with Bob Armstrong. And I believe this probably happened somewhere in the 1990s, maybe. Jim Barnett was leaving, getting out of Georgia. things were happening there, strange things actually. It's not too far from when the two Briscoes sell their stock to Vince McMahon, that causes wrestling to change dramatically. But anyway, on this particular Saturday night that Gerald's telling me about, he says that Jack shows up and they all go down to Lake Lanier. And they're supposed to, Rob sent him a message. He has his boat in one of those big barn hangars. You know what I'm talking about, Dave, where they stack them up on top of each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes you see them stacked 5, 6, or 7 high. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. So, Rob got a nice boat, and he calls them up in the afternoon on a Saturday when they're wrestling. They're going out there Saturday night. And he says, please take my boat down and fuel her up and have it ready for me. So when they arrive, it's obviously about midnight. They've wrestled. They're somewhere close to Atlanta, usually on a Saturday night. And so they get to the dock, and there's no boat, So and they have their refreshments. They've had a pretty long week, and they've got an alcoholic beverage or two. They're going to have a good little Saturday night here. Planning on spending the night on the boat. That's what they were planning on doing.
Right.
So, but now the boat's in the hangar, right? So they start drinking, and Jack Brisco shows up, Jerry's brother Jack, and Jack liked to drink, and he was like a lot of American Indians. It didn't take much to set him on fire, man. And Jack got pretty rowdy, and he finally, about 2:00 in the morning, he left. He went back to Atlanta, went home to Atlanta, and they're still hanging around on the boat dock. So Rob goes over, and they check out the fence, and hey, they could crawl the fence. So they crawl the fence, and they climb up 4 racks high and get in Rob's boat. Now they've been drinking. It's probably 3 or 4 in the morning, and Gerald says they passed out. He says we passed out in the boat, all of us, and he says the next morning, he said I woke up. He said I was the first one to wake up, and he goes, the sun was shining in my eyes, and he goes, I couldn't figure out what the heck, man, how can it shine through the roof? And then he says I looked up and there was no roof. He said that they had come and taken them up. They didn't know they were in the boat. They forked them up like they do with a big fork.
Oh, my God.
They dropped them down and dropped them in the water there.
Yeah. Yeah, so they were pretty lit. So they had no idea that the forklift actually picked up the boat
They
from
doesn't know anything about
4 stories high.
Yeah, they finally pass out at 2 or 3 in the morning, and then they wake up the next morning at 8 o'clock, and they're sitting in the water.
Wow.
and drunk, and still probably half drunk, right?
Yeah.
So Gerald says they start water skiing. Gerald says, hey, I want to water ski, right? So they throw him some skis in, man, and he takes off, and he says he's skiing, and he says, a lot of boats on the lake. It's like a Sunday now, right? So he says he's skiing along, but it's a big, huge lake. I mean, a mile across in some places. It's a big old lake. Mm-hmm. So he says he's skiing along, and he falls. And he says he looks up when he comes up out of the water, and he says they're talking to each other, and they don't even look back.
Oh, wow.
And he said they just kept going. He said, until they were out of sight. And he said, there I was. He said, thank goodness I had a life jacket on. And he goes, but he says, they've left me.
Oh, my God.
And he says, there's these big boats all around me, man, coming real close and everything. So he said he sees a houseboat, and he works his way over to the houseboat, and he said it took him a long time to get there. The life jacket don't help you when you're swimming, So he says he got to the houseboat, and the people look down there in the water, and they see him, and they go, hey, you're Jerry Brisco.
Oh, my God.
They know him, right?
Yeah, he was definitely known in the state of Florida. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was known in Alabama,
Georgia
too.
At
this point, too.
Yeah,
I mean, him and Jack have been there for years and years now, and they've been partners a bunch. And wow, they were recognized throughout the country, basically, because they went everywhere and wrestled together. So anyway, these people drag him out of the water, and they sit him up there, and they feed him, and they just sit and Gerald says he gets up on the front of the boat because he's looking. He says, "Surely to God they're going to come back. They ain't going to leave me forever here, So he says, probably 3 hours later, he says he spots the boat, and they're kind of circling around out there, and he goes, "There they are, the son of a," he's upset, man, at this point. And so they finally get over close enough to the boat that he's waving his arms, and they spot him. Oh, there he is.
Wow.
So he'd go back and pick him up. And that was Gerald's story, man, about Lake Lanier. So, Mr. Henderson, it's not the kind of story that I would normally tell, but, I guess it's a pretty good one. So Gerald Brisco spent a whole lot of time in the water that day, and a lot of time on somebody else's boat, and very little time with Rob and Bob.
Wow.
Because they obviously didn't need his company.
Well, Jerry obviously had a big story to tell, Mr. Brisco, but then another family from Georgia had one hell of a story to tell, too, about, hey, we picked Jerry Brisco up out of the middle of Lake Lanier.
Yeah.
So, I mean, wow. So that had to be pretty crazy, and then obviously recognized him, so that's cool. All right, let's go. Number 3, Floyd Lindsay, also Atlanta, Georgia. Floyd says, you talked a lot about the city and its size when you and your family moved there in 1964. What do you remember most about the wrestlers, particularly Bob Armstrong, who was probably just getting started at about that time?
That's a great question, and he's right about that. Bob Armstrong really was getting his start right there in that time frame, 64, 65. And I guess, we talked a lot about Atlanta in this episode. So and I can't remember everything we talked about, but I don't know that we did talk about Bob, so not a lot about Bob, but gosh, man, I know that Bob was tremendous. He was a tremendous wrestler. And as a rookie, I remember standing on the stage in the old auditorium there, the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium, downtown Atlanta. It would hold about 7,000 or so. And that place would be sold out all the time. And you could stand on the stage in the back, and there was no lights up there. And nobody really could see you much. And I used to just really admire Bob Armstrong's ability as a young wrestler. I knew he could only been wrestling 1 or less than 2 years, and just really going out and having great matches. Usually guys that are in that first year, they never get off the first match. They're lucky to end up in a second match, but Bob would end up sometimes in a fourth match in his first year. So, it says a lot about where he's at as compared to a rookie, the regular rookie. He was good enough that in that year, either 1964 or 65, I don't know which it was, he won the NWA Rookie of the Year award.
Yeah.
So he was the best young wrestler in the country in that year in 64 or 65.
Wow.
And it wasn't just his wrestling ability. He was already beginning to be able to talk. And that's what really kept guys from getting to the top. Some guys really got good in the ring, but they had a real hard time learning how to do great interviews. And Bob had a natural affinity for those interviews. And wow, he made a name for himself as a young wrestler, which is really, really odd and strange to do. Not many men can do it, but Bob Armstrong wasn't the ordinary man.
And he really had two things going for him. He had an amazing physique and had been working out, a Marine. You're never a former Marine. But then, as you said, his ability on the microphone came naturally.
Yeah, he just had it, man. And, gosh, and he never lost any of it. he just got better and better, I probably was thinking, when I watched him back there and he was really young like that, this guy's as good as he's ever going to get. But wow, that was not the case, man. I mean, he just continued to get better and better. And wow, he's undoubtedly one of the greatest of all time, no doubt about it.
No doubt. And it's I just saw this, I think it was one day last week. We passed the 1 year anniversary of his passing. All right, let's go. Let's go to question number 4. David Klosterman says, you talked about your father moving you back to Mobile so he could collect his payments for the old Gulf Coast territory he had sold to his cousins, the Fields brothers. You said Lee Fields ran a stock car track outside of Mobile. I'm a big racing fan. Do you have any racing stories? David Klosterman submitted that one.
Oh boy, don't have his city, for fans, when you leave these questions, man, I'd love to know what city you're in. I mean, this guy may be from Mobile. If he's got a question like this, he's aware of the Fields brothers. He's also aware that Lee Fields had a track out there. So, I spent some time with Lee Fields at the end of 1977, right about the same time frame we're in the actual Studcast. I'm just about to start getting interested and getting to the point where I'm starting to make a deal for this new territory. So I go to the Lee Fields in Mobile, Alabama, and I spent several nights in his home there, which was right by his racetrack. And he even took me out one day, Dave, and he put me in a race car and he let me run about 4 or 5 laps around the track. I'd never run a race car before. Mm-hmm. Wow, it was an experience in itself. And, my father, I remember my father telling me stories about racetracks and drivers back in the 50s and 60s and how bad that they fought each other. Mm-hmm. He said that Lee told him, and he said he saw it for himself because he went a few times to see track racing was pretty popular back in the 50s and 60s, Pensacola, Mobile, along the Gulf Coast. And he said that these drivers would get into big fights after the race was over, man. They would go at it. So, I guess there's a little bit of fighting that goes along with car racing, too, as a matter of fact.
Yes, just a little bit, indeed. All right, question number 5. Bobby Lanier, Salt Lake City, Utah. As you and your family were finishing with wrestling in Arizona in, I believe, 1963 or 64, Bobby says, why did your father have his eyes on Salt Lake City as an expansion city for the Arizona territory?
Wow. Well, Bobby, there weren't a lot of cities available to run in Arizona other than Phoenix and Tucson, major cities. You could go east into New Mexico, but the Funks were there and had been there for many, many years. And, you didn't want to go in and, step on somebody else's toes, mm-hmm. members of the NWA and good guys. And so you didn't want to go east. You couldn't go to Albuquerque, because of that situation. You couldn't really go west because there was operations in Los Angeles and in that direction. So north was you couldn't go south. You'd go into Mexico, but I don't think Dad wanted to run towns in Mexico. So the only direction you could really look was north. And, Salt Lake City was a pretty big city back in those days. And I don't think it had ever had wrestling. Dad told me that he didn't think that it ever had any wrestling there. So it's like a virgin territory that, man, would just be, it could just take off and turn into an astronomical territory. Now you had another state to your north, Nevada. You had obviously Las Vegas down in that southern part of that state. So I guess he could have gone into Salt Lake City. He could have expanded maybe into Las Vegas. Don't think anybody was running in Las Vegas, but I think he was pretty well done with the West, with Arizona for sure, and out there in the Western United States. He's an old Southern boy, and I believe he wanted to go home. And thank goodness he took us with him, and we all got the heck out of Arizona about 1963, early part of '64.
Mm-hmm.
And in that year, Dave, I think I went to 4 high schools in that sophomore year in 4 states.
I can't believe you said that, because that's one of the things I remembered, and that was my next question. So you'll never forget Arizona. Wow.
No. I mean, it's as far west as I ever lived.
Yeah.
And, but geez, we were in Arizona that year. We were in Alabama that year. We went to Colorado that year. And we ended up in Georgia that year.
Wow.
So it was a moving year, man. And we were looking, Dad was looking for a home, and by golly, he found it in Atlanta, and we spent a lot of time there, and wow, he had tremendous success there. Like every place else he had been, he had phenomenal success in Georgia.
Oh, and we would expect nothing more, because that's just the way it was with your dad and your granddad ahead of that. All right, listen, before we take off and get out of here, let's mention one more time about you got a couple of things happening on Southeastern Rewind with you and Les Thatcher, and then on Sunday afternoon, a brand new USA Wrestling show.
Yes. In fact, tomorrow is going to be Friday. We'll be putting up Les Thatcher and I's Rewind Recall, that review that we do for every program, and that will be on Friday. This show will be shown on Friday or up on Friday, and fans will be able to hear their questions get answered. Those that we were lucky enough to be able to pull their answers, they'll be able to hear those. And then on Sunday afternoons, it's a regular thing. Every Sunday afternoon, 3:00 Eastern time, a brand new USA television show is going to be put up.
That is awesome, and we'll be looking for that tomorrow and on Sunday. There you have it, another Southeastern Rewind's Tell Me More, where the Tennessee stud Ron Fuller answered 5 questions about Studcast number 18, which is now on Ron's new home on YouTube. Remember to find Southeastern Rewind on YouTube. Subscribe, ring the bell to get reminders on when the greatest stories in wrestling will be dropped on YouTube. And be sure to tell your friends about Southeastern Rewind. For Ron Fuller, I'm David Sommers. We'll be back soon with another Tell Me More.